Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Doppler's Gear Garage. It's Saturday. Raise them up. Let me know where you're coming from in the chat there. Nice keyboard there. You can tell it's an Apple product. All right. In case we haven't met, my name is Doug Doppler, and it is Saturday here. I'm coming to you from sunny California. And Doppler's Gear Garage, this is where, amongst other things, I answer your questions, but also maybe sometimes answer the questions that maybe you haven't asked yet. One of the things that is special about this particular little hang is that I get a chance to have some unique interaction with the people that I affectionately call my students, and a number of whom show up and kind of ask all sorts of cool questions, some of whom actually are cool enough to send me some questions in advance. So one of the things I want to do, first of all, is I want to start off by saying, first of all, good morning, Chris Alexander. Always a pleasure. Zach Lee. Hello, Venice, California. Ron Martin, great to see you, my friend. All right, Ohio. I don't know how that sounds like Ohio, but I'll tell you that. Jay Kirkland, I've missed you, my man. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you. Great to see you. Boy, you got Jim. Sorry, I'm not playing a Gibson yet, but it is part of the Gibson family, so there we go. Melissa, hello. Paul Richard, hello. So first of all, the funny thing is there's a guy named Tony Robbins. Years ago, kind of spent some time studying a little bit of kind of what Tony was presenting in terms of kind of like things to think, so you maybe ask better questions. One of the things that Tony talked about was the quality of the questions you ask quite often will define the quality of the things that you're thinking about, to kind of paraphrase that. And so the thing is that what's so neat is I'm surrounded by so many really cool people, a number of whom are what I would affectionately refer to as advanced intermediate players. And one of the things I did a month and a half or so ago is I asked a bunch of my students, what defines an advanced player, and what are the things that you would need to be able to do to become a more advanced player, and or to go from where you are to being an advanced player. And we didn't totally define what an advanced player does, but we did define a bunch of the things that an advanced player, in theory, is thinking about as they're in the act of doing that. Oh, awesome. Excellent. Okay, why aren't we coming into chat there? What's going on? Hey. Oh, that's interesting. My overlays are not overlaying. All right, Chris Colombo, good morning, my friend. So, I'm always Saturday morning thinking about what are we going to do here that's going to be fun and interesting. So, I want to cover the overview of different topics. For one of the things that I did want to talk about is this little thing that I got going on right here. And here, that right there is my Fractal Audio FM9 deep editor. Now, why do we want to do that? Because all of us at this point pretty much have either a modeler or modeler we're thinking about. And one of the things that I'm doing is prepping this little box here to be playing the show with Neely Brosh. That's going to be in 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, 1 week from today, Neely's going to be joining me on the show. Bring your questions. She is a ridiculously skilled musician, great guitar player, awesome human being, and a great friend. That's a pretty awesome combination. But what I'm kind of doing is I'm doing this very strange process of having the luxury of recorded instrumental tracks for this instrumental EP actually in December, and looking at my clock, I'm kind of like, it's May. But immediately kind of on the heels of that, I went back into the studio and recorded the basic tracks for a vocal EP. So kind of, it's not like I was just kind of kicking back, flipping channels. But in the process of doing this, I've had a chance to go to Texas, thanks to Larry Mitchell, sit in with him at the Dallas International Guitar Festival, and then also do a humble but great small show in Marshall, Texas. And in the process of that, I got a chance to take the basic tracks, load them into my looper, which is when I'm doing solo shows without a band, how I do things so I can extend a section and I can kind of change the arrangement on the fly, but with my feet, not having to do it with a laptop. It is a phenomenal experience. Over my shoulder there, which you can't see there, is my Boss RC300. There is a Boss RC600 that is on its way to me. I am, I guess what you would say, a Roland/Boss artist. So I have the privilege of working with that amazing team there, and they're great people. So that is on its way to me. And the advantage of that unit versus the 300, for those of you that ever have the opportunity to either go out and play live with tracks, or you're recording something in your DAW and are tired of, like, I'm just either looping a section or going from beginning to end, and would like to have a vehicle to help craft an arrangement, you basically take your sections, you can control the arrangement with your feet. It's a very powerful thing. And unlike the 300, the 600 allows you to do that with 6 stereo pairs. So you can basically chop your song instead of into 3 sections into 6, which for me is a big deal. It means that I can kind of go, okay, here's my intro. I'm going to hang out there as long as I want. I'm ready to go into the body of the song. If I'm feeling like I want to extend the solo section or do a breakdown before the solo section, I can slice and dice at will. If at the end of the song I want to break it down, I can do that. But after the breakdown, then I want to go back into the chorus and then have an actual ending part again where I have some sort of tag. I now have the freedom to do that because I have more than 3 pieces to do that with. That unit should be arriving this week, and that's very exciting for me. In the midst of this, I've had the ability to outwork playing those songs live before I actually had to commit to the tones and the performances. And there's nothing like being able to take your songs in the midst of the studio process and go out and play them. For those of us that are instrumental players, which is a good percentage of, or those of us who love instrumental music, most of the time we don't have a band that's just on deck that we're regularly gigging with, right? We're kind of, the gigs can be sporadic. And so as an end result, it ends up being this very closed environment where it's you in the studio and it's you in the studio. So having the luxury of being able to go out and play these songs, my goal is over the next couple of weeks with this little box over here, the FM9, there are a couple of really cool things about this device that I love. There are a few amplifiers here. And so I'm going to use the tone match functionality, which enables me to basically capture the soul of these amplifiers and put them in this box and have a chance to use them against the actual stems. That is to say, you take your mixes and you kind of bounce them into stereo pairs. You bring that into a Pro Tools session, you kind of bring the various levels of what you want, a little louder, a little softer. And those stems are ones that John Coonaberry created for me already. So they are already kind of treated a little bit. And in turn, I can hear which tones work organically against certain sections and which ones don't. So it's what we would call sound design. And this week I've been spending some time dropping my guitar pick. There we go. Working with some of the working with delays, but actually working with reverb and pre-delay. So I want to walk through a little bit of that sound design. Before I do that, and I'm going to see if I can do a better job than I did last week of being on track. So every so often people ask these great questions and I just kind of manage to ditch them in the midst of half answering them or whatever. So let's see if I can be the focus fox. And Chris Alexander always is so great on Friday. By the way, you're welcome to do this, kind of message me. Preferably, okay, short thing. People affectionately, and I love them for this, have gotten in the habit of DMing me videos. I don't have the bandwidth in this moment to sit and watch people's videos that are DM'd me. I can't do that with the things I've got to do. But questions for Saturday's show, I'm opening I'm opening the door and saying, hey, if you got questions for Saturday's show, because that is a communal thing that we all benefit from, please send them via DM, because that's probably the best way to, if you're on Facebook. And yes, and you can leave them, and then hopefully you also can have them show up in the chat. All right, so this is a really great question here. I love this. What scale and key do I typically gravitate to when writing? That's such a great question. Kevin Wayne Carr, what's going on? Phil, what's going on, my man? So I, by design, love A. Now, this is one of the things, you've opened the door there. So those of you that are Satriani fanatics, there's this concept of the pitch axis. And the concept is, as a matter of fact, that last one. So that last little song there is called... called Summer Nights. And the chords are basically an A minor 7, a D over F sharp, an F, and basically an E major. And so what's happening is actually changing modes between... And traditionally when I have a tonal center as an A, where these things are happening against it, and the first chord is a minor chord, I will just play minor pentatonic against it. And that is to say, I will let the other chords define what's happening modally. So the first chord, I'll play minor pentatonic over the top of it. Dorian minor, harmonic minor. And in so doing, I'm using the key of A, kind of my go-to key, in one of the ways that I have a tendency to like to use it maybe too much. So if there's a key, Chris, great question, it's A, and if there is a mode, it's a tendency to be a Dorian type of vibe. And Joe used to describe this thing as G disease, where G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, where guitar players had a tendency to get stuck in G. And I am very much infected with that. But the great thing about the key of G, as you've probably heard me say before, is when you start on a low E string, going up and down one octave, it's the perfect key for the guitar. All the open strings are included. It's better than C, because C, if you start on the 6 strings, kind of orphaned, if you will, in the middle of the neck. Not that you can't go backwards or upwards, down and up. But G, to me, is a more logical key. So the thing about A that's so nice is that you've got the open A string that you can use different textures against, and you have the ability to go from below it and above. So you get this kind of almost counterpoint happening in the way that you can build the chords against it when it's that type of a progression. That said, F sharp is a great key. Certain keys with certain instruments with certain tones that sound good. This is not necessarily your average heavy metal tone, but for the kind of there we go. And then kind of kind of thing that I am passionate about doing, where it's kind of imitating this. That strange blend between whammy bar and slide and kind of harmonica, which I call guitar monica. All that to say, F sharp is a great key. Another key that is really overlooked a lot is B, but in particular C sharp. Why C sharp? Chris, it's such a great question. Well, you can hear it. It's one of those keys that just about every guitar that I've got sounds great playing it. The other thing about it, if you play C sharp minor, you get E major, right? So the thing about this isn't the best tone for that, but it's a really sweet register on the guitar that, for me at least, was one that I ignored for a long time. All right, so in any case, Chris, what a wonderful question to kick things off, because, the funny thing is, on Fridays here in the Bay Area, there's a guitar hang, and I get a chance to hang out with a bunch of my guitar buddies, and this is put together by my buddy Mason Marangella. And we spent some time over at Mason's place afterwards, and I got a chance to play through all of Mason's different guitars. He's got an amazing collection of instruments. But I was talking about stuff, and I was talking about the fact that there are things that Zach, are you going to go note names on me? Hey Zach, hang on. Can I cut and paste that? I don't think I can. Oh, you're speaking my love language. Okay, hang on, Zach. I got you, baby. Zach Lee, note name. So I got a little Easter egg for you. A minute ago, I was talking about this concept of the idea of being able to basically take like an A minor chord kind of, and if you think about the G major scale, whose notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. And if you think about the G, B, and D, that's a G major triad. And if you were to take those notes, Mr. Vi, in his book Videology, talks about chord scales. And you will have heard me talk about this before, and you'll hear me talk about it again, but we're going someplace cool. Oh gosh, I took the bait and I didn't finish what I was doing. Am I done with the tone? No, I was talking about Mason. Caught myself at least. So one of the things I said kind of matter-of-factly to Mason was the things that you don't think about that other people don't know, that just are so matter-of-fact and part of your language. And it's one of the interesting things. I am very fortunate in this moment. I'm distilling not only content for my students and for people that I have the privilege of hanging out with on Saturday, because this is my idea of having a good time on a Saturday morning. Like, thank you. This, it's like, what else are we going to do? Sleep? We're going to hang out and talk about guitar. Yeah. But there are things that, sometimes just don't occur to me that are part of this consciousness. So the more you can kind of pull down and go, that distillation that I have about something may just be the tipping point for somebody. And my student, Paul, where are you, Paul Richard? Are you still on here, buddy? Paul asked this really great question, and it sent me over to a video that Tomo did, and I'm kind of working my way around here. So I've got Zach on the notes, and I finished up with Mason. So, and Zach, I'm coming to you. One of the things was that Paul had sent through this video of Tomo working with this other session guitar player who I don't know, but Tomo is a guy that I'm becoming guitar buddies with, and he was on the show here once before. And Lindy Day is somebody, for those of you that saw my Cage post where I posted her article from Premier Guitar, and Lindy and I are connecting today at 3 o'clock. and we got some stuff brewing. Lindy is a theory genius and is one of the most. Hey, Johnny Bean, what's going on, man? Oh, thank you very much, my man. Thank you. Sharp eye there. Hey, Paul Richard, great to see you, my friend. Again, so the thing about Lindy is that I don't think, with the exception of one other player named Joe Satriani, and maybe Steve Vai, and I'm going to get back to these triads in a second. I've never met anybody that shares such a common take on theory and ear training. So one of the things that happened is in a quick phone call we had the other day, I said, where did you learn all this stuff? And she said, well, I've made it a point to seek out great teachers. I'm like, smart girl. She's not girl, but you know what I mean. And that's not said in a smart girl, but you know. The point being is that she looks at diatonic theory and harmony from an ear training point of view. So the Easter egg for y'all, hot on the heels of Zach's question about note names, is a concept that Mr. Satriani learned from Lenny Tristano called the pitch axis. And so basically the concept is it, like what I was doing there, I'm basically playing some A minor pentatonic type of deal. That forces the A Dorian, A minor over the F chord, and A harmonic minor over the E chord. That's one of the ways you can interpret it, is you're seeing how those chords are impacting what you could play at A. So it's a common tonal center, but you're changing modes over a common root. So that's a pitch axis. I have been working away on a concept that I didn't really have a name for. I had informally called it the note grid. So here's the deal. Alex, what's going on? Boy, your Spanish is beyond my capacity. Pero, bienvenidos, amigo. Okay, that's about as far as I go. So the concept of the note grid is as follows. Is if you think about, okay, and Zach, you talked about A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, the notes of A major. So I'm about to go on a mad, freakish note expedition. Not in this moment, but I always live there. But here's the deal. If there's one ginormous area that musicians really kind of suck, it's the note names. Now, I'm going to tether your note name thing with Paul's Tomo thing. And one of the things that Paul sent me in this text, which I really appreciate, was there's this video and they're playing this chord progression, and Paul was like, well, how do they know which chord to go to, and how do you hear that, and how do you begin to develop a framework to be able to understand that? So I'm going to take this concept of the note grid, I'm going to kind of do a little mashup here. Brad, what's going on, my friend? Awesome, thank you so much. So if you think about, let's start off with the key of G major. No, let's start off with E major. No, we're going to start off with C major. C, hold the D, hold the E, half to F, hold the G, hold the A, hold the B, half to C. C, half to B, hold the A, hold the G, hold the F, half to E, hold the D, hold the C. As in 1, hold the 2, hold the 3, half to 4, hold the 5, hold the 6, hold the 7, half to 1. 1, half to 7, hold the 6, hold the 5, hold the 4, half to 3, hold the 2, hold the 1. We move it down a string. 1, hold the 2, hold the 3, half to 4, hold the 5, hold the 6, hold the 7, half to 1. 1, half to 7, hold the 6, hold the 5, hold the 4, half to 3, hold the 2, hold the 1. G, hold the A, hold the B, half to C, hold the D, hold the E, hold the F sharp, half to G. So G, hold the A, hold the B, half to C, hold the D, hold the E, hold the F sharp, half to G. That's the same thing. G, hold the A, hold the B, half to C. G, hold the A, hold the B, half to C, hold the D, hold the E, hold the F sharp, half to G. G, half to F sharp, hold the E, hold the D, hold the C, half to B, hold the A, hold the G. So if you think about what we did when we took the notes of C, we turned them into numbers. We moved them down a string, still following the number pattern. We turned those into note names. We took those same note names here, and then we flip that back into numbers, as in 1, hold the 2, hold the 3, half to 4, hold the 5, hold the 6, hold the 7, half to 1. All these open strings, 1. At the second fret, the 2 for all these keys, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So the concept is if I can think about basically along, so where the pitch axis is about taking a common bass, no, although I'd kind of shift to the E, but the tonal center. It's still going to be the A there, even though we kind of hung out at the E chord as the bass note there. What it gets us used to doing, instead of seeing it with a common note, we're seeing a common relationship between the scale degree numbers of E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And I haven't gotten to the point where I'm quite as fast as B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. I guess I am. And then back to E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. So what it means is that we're comfortable of thinking about the three, most importantly, the 3 and the 5 for E, A, D, G, and B. And that means that we're comfortable about thinking about, if we're in the key of E major, that those E, G, and B, sorry, E, G, sharp, and B notes are my resolution tones. And that means that if I take the 1, 3, and 5, and I can calculate that's A, C sharp, and E, and D, F sharp, and A, G, B, and D, B, D sharp, F sharp, and again, E, G sharp, and B. That means that as I'm in the key of B, which is not necessarily the most friendly key, considering the only thing that is natural are the B and the E. And one of the things about the note axis is that if you get used to seeing keys parallel to one another and understanding the note names and how they basically, you're still just taking the diatonic numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and then expressing them as note names, and can see that for keys, parallel keys, if you will, just gets you really comfortable with the foundational level of just being able to go, got it, and why that's so important for anybody who's going, oh my word, what's up with the note names? Hey, John, what's going on? Carvin neck pickup. Yes, MT22. Is that you? Pretty sounding guitar. All right. So the deal is, once you get comfortable with that, then you're able to, as you're playing over each one of the chord change. I love D major. Awesome, Jim. Ditto. So the note names enable you to actually, instead of playing, and this is where the magic actually happens. The biggest problem that most guitar players have is they play the same shapes in the same keys, even D major, dare I say. Warehouse 231, what's going on? Oh, hey, Earl, what a pleasure, man. Welcome. I'm going to be at Warehouse 231 in July, on July 23rd. And I can't wait. What a venue you have got, Earl. Holy cow. And so I'm so looking forward to it, dude. So awesome. As a matter of fact, I've got a little, I haven't put up my little PSA yet of all the dates, but I have talked a little bit about the Neely gig, and I've got the dates that I'll put up a little bit later. But you know what? I'm going to put the dates up right now. Hang on a second here. So let's see. Now, my overlays were giving me a little bit of drama, but hopefully that's not going to be an issue as I go to create an overlay. Let's see. I'm going to read them out loud. How's that? So I am going to be on Friday. First of all, June 10th, Saturday night, I'm going to be at Alva's showroom in San Pedro. So any of you that are in the Southern California area, please come. I'm opening up for Neely Brosh. It is my first California show playing these new instrumental songs. I'm besides myself. All right, then on Friday, July 21st, I'm going to be at the Underdog in East Nashville. I'm going to be playing with Larry Mitchell, and I'm also going to be playing with Lance Lopez. So a new guitar buddy, brilliant blues player, originally from Texas, now in Nashville. So that show is Friday, 7/21. On Saturday, 7/22 at Shoals Axe Fest at the Sweetwater Depot in Florence, Alabama. That's going to be Larry, myself, and Jamie Lamb, who you may or may not know from maybe the Vi Academy. Great guitar player, great human being. Going to be a great show. Then on Sunday, July 23rd at Warehouse 231 in Montgomery, Alabama, It's going to be Larry and myself. The great thing about these shows that I'm super excited, and by the way, both the Saturday and the Sunday shows, we're going to do some clinics, and I'm going to be talking about some of the stuff I'm going to come back and talk to in a minute. On the sound design front, as well as other stuff, and answering questions, because clinics are great to share what you're thinking about, but it's also great to kind of be able to share your thoughts about what other people are thinking about, because often that's more interesting. So here's the deal. Did I get the dates wrong there? June 10th, Saturday in San Pedro, July 21st, Nashville, July 22nd, Muscle Shoals / Florence, July 23rd, Montgomery, Alabama. Holy cow, I'm getting a chance to go out and play guitar. So the thing about that trio of shows is that is going to be the debut of the trio. So first of all, there is this amazing bass player named Angeline Saris that played on both the instrumental and the vocal sessions. And when I was down in Los Angeles for the NAMM show, I jammed, Ronnie Lee had this jam night kind of just at the beginning of the show, and this drummer, Tasha Jones, I'm sitting there and I'm hanging out with Thomas Blug, and Tasha, kind of sits down at the kit and goes into these mad Stuart Copeland riffs, and both Thomas and I just kind of looked at each other and just like, there are people who play people's stuff, and then there are people who just own people's stuff. We were like, wow. So I just figured, this is somebody that, I don't know, must play in some reggae band or something. And then all of a sudden she launches into her rock and roll thing. I was like, oh, this is one of the best drummers I've ever heard. And then I had a chance to play All Right Now. Wrong sound. With Tanya, and it was with Tasha. Gosh, come on, Doug. And it was unreal. The most dynamic, listening, crazy live, never played together, not an ounce of rehearsal, but instant chemistry vibe. Tasha is an animal behind the kit, but yet at the same time owns parts at a level that it's just kind of unreal. This trio, it'll be the first time the trio's played live, Angeline and Tasha, and I am so besides myself because this is kind of this band getting out and starting to play live. So Peter Keys from Skynyrd played on the instrumental EP, but he's off doing Skynyrd stuff. Zorro the drummer played drums, but he's not in touring mode where he's at. And then Jared James Nichols guest on what's going to be the first single that's going to come out. But obviously Jared's off doing that. So this trio is going to be the vehicle that I'm so excited that I get a chance to share these songs with when they're available. And when they're not, I'm going to be doing it with the tracks, which I'm also equally excited about. All right. All that to say, sorry, I got a little distracted here, but you know what? Warehouse 231. Actually, no, thank you so much. I am so excited. So really, Earl, thank you very, 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 very much. Okay. Getting back to Alex. Gratis, Melissa, obrigado. Okay. Awesome, John. I look forward to seeing you. I was hoping I was going to see you there. All right. So getting back, I did not forget to this whole, what started off as a note grid, and it's basically the note axis. So where the pitch axis is putting a common anchor at a certain note and then playing different modes against it, the note axis is playing the same, thinking about the same mode, but in different keys. Now, why is that valuable? Because the biggest challenge guitar players have is they get stuck. Chris Alexander, to your point, A is that place where most people have a tendency to kind of get, stuck in the mud, playing the same licks in the same key over and over in that rutted path, kind of going, wow, the longer I play, the less it feels like I'm being creative and the more I'm repeating myself. And so the neat thing about when you begin to look at things in terms of the note names, and the great thing, again, I'm going to talk about Lindy for a second. So I put together a list of, so it's entirely possible Lindy and I are going to do some content together. And I put together a whole list of topics, and one of which was what makes the minor pentatonic scale minor. And you've heard me rant about this before. Most of us, when we were first taught the minor pentatonic scale, somebody in the back of some music store scrawled some stuff on a piece of paper and never bothered to tell us, like, hey, by the way, this right here, that's an A, C, D, E, G, and an A. And that A, C, and the E right there, compared to an A major scale, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, C sharp, and E are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and A, C, and E are the 1 flat 3 and 5. So inside this A minor pentatonic is that chord. And that's why if you're able to see that, but more importantly than that, if say we're hitting that chord and we're letting that note ring, well, why does that note not sound as good as that one? Or that one? Or that one? And that's because that 1, flat 3, and 5 are the chord tones. Now the other notes are super important because they build tension. Without the tension notes, and the deal is there's some players like Neil Schon, perhaps, at age 15, he just knew which notes sounded great, not only over the tonic chord, but over the other chords in the progression. So let's say our chord progression going A minor to G major. And an F major. Well, guess what? That's F, A, and C. And how about E major? That's E, G sharp, and B. Well, guess what? One of the neat things about all that business, if you get comfortable with A, C sharp, and E, and then we be able to go A, C, and E, and then we're able to go G, B, and D, and F. Well, we don't get the open string, but there's F, A, and C because we go 1 over 2 over 3, F to 4 over 5, and then E if we want to go in harmonic. E Phrygian dominant, A harmonic minor. But the point being is being able to see and there in many ways I was in a common key, but the ability to just kind of see different bass notes and how the notes outlay themselves is kind of the essence of what this note axis thing is about. And literally it kind of came to me in the shower and it's like, note axis, exactly. Because it's being able to see all these different note names, and what it does is for guitar players allows you to unlock the neck. Now there is a little bit of work involved in that, and that you kind of have to actually start striping the notes up and down the neck. But the beauty of it is all of a sudden the notes that sound really great against a particular chord, you can kind of go, wait a second, all right, I was playing that A major. Well, I was going the G sharp and the A, right? That natural 7 to the 1. That was F sharp, D sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, B, A. And after a while, you just go, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. You just don't have to really think about it anymore because you just kind of know them. Even better than that, you begin to recognize them on the neck. Now, why is that valuable? Well, for those of us that have played A minor pentatonic and all of a sudden found ourselves in the key of B flat, and we play by shape, location, kind of in relationship oriented by where the dots were, on a Les Paul, kind of the bars, if you will. And all of a sudden we have to ship 1 fret up or down the neck. We're really lost. But the thing is, if you think about the B flat minor pentatonic, B flat, D flat, and F. So all of a sudden now I'm looking for my B flat, Sorry, B flat. I found a C, B flat, D, and an F. Sorry, B flat, D, F. I know that. Hey. And then that's my F, that's my E flat. And again, by ear, I don't even have to look. I know I'm at the 11th fret because that's my B flat. There, I'm at the 14th fret. I'm at the 13th fret with my F. 11th fret with the E flat. So after a while, you just don't have to think about it because you just kind of know it. And the analogy that I'm making before I kind of get off my little micro rant is that it's kind of like if I said IFISAID, we can spell the words that we speak. So why can't we actually go A, C, D, E? A little flat, E. E flat to E. More importantly, really, at least being able to pick out your A minor as in A, C, and E, your tonic triad there. Sorry, I didn't quite get there. But at least you know what you're aiming for instead of like, I don't know, I'm just going to ramble. I'm seeing a lack of comments, which I've actually discovered is usually a good thing. So I'm just going to take it at that. But, you know, here's the thing about all of that business is that it is a very different way of looking at the guitar neck. But it's also kind of going, hey, you know, what are the common problems that people, Catalino, ¿cómo está? We are having a great weekend. Thank you very much. Here's to you and everybody. Raise them up. Okay. So that was a little bit of a mouthful. So I'm going to make sure that I didn't miss any. Chris, there we go. Question about this pickup. So this guy, in theory, by having the 4 set screws, presuming that there's a spring underneath there. You can't really see it, but underneath. Well, I guess you can't. Underneath the neck pickup there, you can see that where the bridge pickup has just individual screws, this mounting ring has got 2, if you will, for the neckmost and bridgemost coil. In theory, that should enable you to adjust the height of each of those coils relationally to the strings. Or, you know, arguably the better reason is actually such that you can get it kind of parallel with the strings on an instrument where if you take a look at the mounting rings here, they're at an angle, right? So the idea is to try and get them flat, ideally. Or maybe not if you kind of like the sound of that. But yes, that is an important factor there, and it's one of the things that, you know, is a good idea to do. The other thing is that although I don't do this just for pisses and giggles, and I don't actually, Stu Mac has, Stuart McDonald, by the way, has a series of tools that guitar players have, and I'm looking for my Ernie Ball Musician's Toolkit, of which I've got 3 of them, and none of which are kind of right here, but there's a little measure that comes in there. I would strongly suggest doing a couple of things. When you've got your guitar, where you like where the action is, and when you like where the pickups are, get a little measure, a little ruler. They're called rulers, and you take a measurement of where they're set and make that. I've gotten in the habit of doing something called a treasure map. And I've talked about it before, but basically I've got so many files floating around, and in the process of going back and preparing to play over these tracks live, I kind of found myself looking for some of the source Pro Tools sessions, and traditionally what happens, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and I'll come down and there'll be some piece of music that's going through my head, and I'll wake up and I'll hear it, and I'll come and make some name for the Pro Tools session that has nothing to do with what when I bounce the file, what I named it as. A short version of that is, once you actually have a name for it, rename the Pro Tools session and maybe even the folder that it lives in. But the point being is that I hadn't been in the habit of doing that because quite often I don't have a name right away when I'm working on an instrumental piece of music. So the point being is I was playing this hunt through 100 different songs looking for the source audio of a song that I never actually found. But I did then take that opportunity in notes to make a note of all the kind of little bits and pieces of songs that I liked, and made a little description kind of where they could be found on my hard drive. Arguably one should do that a little bit earlier on with a better organization. So when you bend a note is not more than the same young guitarist didn't know how to deal with it. I think what I think you're saying. I just want to make sure I'm accurate, and please feel free to kind of message me down below if I got it wrong. But this is the thing about Jimmy Jet. What's going on, my man? Always a pleasure. You always kind of fill my tank, but you know that, so thank you for that. The thing about bends, and when I think of bends, I think of Joe, but I also think of Neil Schon, right? I mean, Neil is kind of, and by the way, that's the 5 of the key. And there's the 1. There's the 1 flat 3/5. Rick Hunel. Neil is not only in my top 5, he's probably in my top 3. Good morning, my dear friend. Great to see you. Sorry I'm not playing the V this morning. But the interesting thing is that there's so many, and this is one of the things that and Gary Moore, tell me about it, man. Rick, great to see you. Always a pleasure. But you can always tell I always smile when I see you, but you knew that. I guess that's bad English, right? When I see you smile. Or when I see me smile, or when you see me smile. I don't know. All right. Focus Fox. Hey, what's going on, Kobe? How you doing, man? Kobe, yeah. So the thing about, this is one of the things that I think, I'm going to let you guys inside kind of this whole thing. What I'm excited about with Lindy is we're probably going to do this content. We don't quite know. That's what we're going to talk about today at 3 is like where it's going to appear, how we're going to focus on it. But one of the ideas of actually starting a standalone YouTube channel, informally, my informal name is Theory Geeks or Guitar Geeks. Bending is definitely an art, but the other thing is that as is bending, and but the thing is that if you know what you're going for, again, and one of the other things that this is one of a series of topics that Lindy and I are going to go over, but one of which is like, well, how do you get better at bending? Well, you hit that note and you learn to feel the tension pre-bending it of when you're at the right note. So there's a huge amount of bending that has nothing to do with your ears. So that is to say, there it is. And after a while, you can feel when the tension, you have to hear that it's at the right spot, but then you kind of go, that's what the tension feels like. The bummer is it's different on every guitar, but once you kind of get comfortable with your main guitars, you begin to kind of go, I know where that note is. The other thing is, not that. Sorry, I keep pulling off. And the great thing about that, he's at the 2. Nice tension. He's also actually bending between the 2. And the flat 3. And again, classic Neil. He's going from the flat 7 to the 1. And adding that beautiful vibrato. It's also, the thing is that, he hears the right notes to play over the chords. I mean, it's just one of the most incredibly musically intuitive guitar players because he's Neil Schon. And then, and this guitar is kind of a not unison. Actually, if you're going to do a unison bend, what you got to do, when you bend, so you actually have to bend that second string a little bit. Bend both strings and adding a little vibrato. That takes a little bit of work, and then Jimmy, absolutely. But doing the unison bends is a little bit easier on a guitar that the tremolo doesn't pull up. Okay, let's see. Alex Soda, San Jose, Brazil. Obrigado. There we go. My limited Brazilian. Jimmy Arsenault. I was just about to type Gary Moore. How about Shanker? Shanker, right? Love Shanker. Jimmy, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Okay, Captain Scarlet, what's happening? My friend Guthrie has a great video on bending. Guthrie is, he did a class on pentatonic at, I think it was the last Vi Academy, and it was just like mesmerizing. His take on the pentatonic and how to use it. The thing about Guthrie is he's like kind of like off the charts brilliant, like freakishly. You kind of hear him talking, you go like he lives in a different IQ zone than us mortals. But at the same time, when he talks about music, he has this very down to earth way of talking about it. It's fascinating because he can bring it down to this very granular level that it speaks to his genius. All right, Eric, what are you saying? The solos you wrote and played with Larry Mitchell were awesome. I'm very kind. Can you give us a lesson on playing with other people? We may not have the time for that today, but do it in a future episode. First of all, Headstock Harem, what's going on? Unison bends are awesome. I agree, Headstock. David Ritchie, good morning. Pleasure. So the interesting thing, Eric, I have a 6x12 piece of paper, and my biggest, I was talking about this with Mason yesterday, my biggest fault as a content creator and as a musician is a little bit of kind of musical wanderlust and content wanderlust, not really being systematic about what the content I'm going to make is and how regular I'm going to make it, which is the key if you want to be in people's influence sphere. There's got to be kind of, if you will, kind of some sort of orbit where there's like regularity to it, right? The planets kind of circle. So the thing is, we've been talking about different types of content, and one of the things that's really high on my list is how you actually, if you're not spending time with other musicians, and I was thinking about this yesterday. So again, the Eric's comment was, well, how do you prepare to play with other musicians? And I was kind of thinking, well, what does an audition look like? Because I was watching some video yesterday. There was a band called The Storm, and I auditioned for them. It was Ross Valerie. Prairie Prince was the drummer when I auditioned for them. Ross Valerie, the original bassist from Journey. Prairie Prince, who played with the Tubes. Later, he was replaced by Steve Smith, drummer from Journey. And who else did Steve Smith play with? Vital Information. Just a brilliant drummer. And I think Steve Smith also played with Ronnie Montrose after Montrose. So the thing is, I went into that audition. Ross Valerie gave me a cassette. And one of the things that he did, and I'm going to kind of tie this together because it's the audition part of it, which I'll start with, for all of us, like, hey, we're sitting at home, we're practicing our scales, we're going, working on try not to pull the note off the edge of the fingerboard there. With the idea is at some point sooner or later, we're going to get into a room full of people and start making music. Quite often, we have to come in and audition. Well, you're walking into somebody else's universe. So how do you begin to know? Well, you prepare, right? And one of the neat things is that I've never really been big on learning other people's songs. One of my favorite things, I spent hours playing over Who's Crying Now when I was a kid. I had the record. Maybe I had it on cassette. I might have recorded off the radio, and I would play over that solo section over and over and over and over, because I wanted to not think about the notes that Neil was playing so much as how he kind of. So I. All right, a little out tune, but the point being is that taking inspiration. So the audition process is Ross gave me the cassette and he told me to learn, I think there were 5 songs on it, something like this. He said, learn 3 songs. I, of course, was like, well, I'm going to learn all the songs that are on there. So I come into the audition and the first thing that Ross says, did you learn all 5 songs? I was like, well, of course I did. But I didn't say it. I was just like that. I was like, well, of course I did. Which is like, I knew him asking me to learn 3 songs really meant, well, this is a test. I'm going to tell you to learn 3. The guy I want is the guy that not only learned 5 songs, but knows them inside and out, doesn't have a little bunch of charts in front of him, just like, let's play. And, the cool thing is that in the midst of that rehearsal, I knew the songs inside and out. I wasn't thinking about the forms or anything. I was thinking about the forms to make sure I wasn't getting overly excited in the moment. But I also then kind of came up with some melodies, again, thank you, Neil Sean, that I played over one of the songs. I didn't get the gig. A guy who ended up, I've known for a long time, he ended up getting the gig, but I ended up replacing him, which is why I'm not mentioning his name, as the demo guy for Sean Guitars. And so that was, again, a cassette that I sent through my buddy Rich Bandoni to Neil. And he was like, yeah, I like this guy's playing. And of course he did. He's like, because although I was shreddier, at that time, I've become a more melodic player as I've gotten older. That cassette had a lot of shredding on it. I'm sure Neil could hear, is like, this guy's been listening. And so, the neat thing is I got a chance to be the demo guy for Sean Guitars at a couple of different NAMM shows. And that was about just kind of being ready to have something to present. And when I was actually in the room, having a great attitude, being there when I needed to be there, out of the way when I needed to be out of the way, right? It's Neil's show, and that was kind of the whole deal. So as it relates to going and playing with other musicians, one of the great things about the NAMM show was it gave me the opportunity to learn. I think I had to learn 7 songs in one day, or I should say I had 5 songs to play one day and 1 song to play. No, 6 songs the one day and then another the next day. So there was the jam, and I was playing behind Taj Farrant, and I played, I think, 4 songs with him and then 2 songs with Ronnie Lee, and the next night with Larry Mitchell. So I knew I was going to use the van ride down there to listen to the songs over and over and learn them. Then in turn, the next day, sitting in the hotel, I just kind of made some basic charts. And just, so I knew the form. So I had a roadmap and then played through looking at the chart, just kind of playing through the form, such that by the time I actually was playing with those folks, I kind of knew the forms. And I'd also watched some of the different videos where some people had played the forms a little bit differently. So when Taj showed up, I was like, hey, blah, 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 how are you doing this? Such that, at that point, I'm his rhythm guitar player. So the idea is like, how do I best serve him such that when he goes to a second, I remember watching one of the videos, I could see him kind of looking over at the other guitar player going, is he going to do the right thing? Or kind of like, hey, we're going now. It's like, I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that you need to distract yourself going, is he going to go now? I'm watching you, and I already know where the forms are. We've already talked about any of the places where it's gone left and instead of going right. I'm not the guy you need to be thinking about. So that sense of knowing the arrangements and the songs and the parts, being able to kind of go intro, verse, chorus, maybe a reintro, verse, chorus, maybe verse 1 is twice as long as verse 2. Maybe chorus 2 is twice as long as chorus 1. Your bridge, maybe a breakdown, your guitar solo, maybe the bridge, the B section of the verse, pre-chorus, into your last chorus, and some sort of tag out, right? So the idea is you're comfortable with the different sections of the form, much like you would think of a car. There's tires, there's doors, there's a roof, just kind of like, what is it that makes it so this thing can go down the road? And when you have words to be able to describe that, yes, those are. Hey, Rez, what's going on? Excuse me. Now, I have to say this guitar could get me into a little bit of trouble, not because I'm a Gibson endorser, because Gibson owns Kramer, but as a DiMarzio endorser, this guitar has a Carvin MT22 pickup, what's really interesting, you can kind of see that the mounting ring has faded in color, like this one. It's not the bobbin. What do you call the top of this thing? And this one has faded to a different color, so it's interesting. I don't know whether they obviously came from a different manufacturing batch. My guess is they were the same color when they were new, but they've kind of faded to different colors. This is a Duncan, and this guitar I got it on Reverb, and the guy had done a demo with it. I was like, oh, it's just it really convinced me why, when and where possible, if you got an instrument that you want people to buy because it sounds great. Hey, Sonia, thank you for briefly checking in and saying hello. Great to see you. Pleasure. So this is probably a late 80s. That's the strangest modulation ever. But it's just a great guitar. Michael Mazzone, what's going on? Well, I will. Thank you, Michael. Awesome. Sonia, 4 days with Thomas Blug and Thomas Langer, 16 participants. Awesome. Sonia, I obviously still have the fulcrum up there. I am now at the point where I moved over to the FM9, and a little bit what we are going to talk about is some sound design with this. It sounds like a little bit like Jeff Beck. It's not an accident. I will say that very thankfully. So appreciated. No, Sonia, thank you, actually. Hey, do me a favor. Say hi to Thomas for me. We played a Zeppelin song. Actually, one of the songs I learned was a Zeppelin song, and I played slide, and he played the little kind of what is and should never be. We had a great time, and that's kind of the whole thing about learning the parts is that if you're not kind of down here looking at the guitar, you're hanging out with your new buddy Thomas, who we had the best, because I'd never met him before, and we had the best time playing and hanging out. It was so much fun. All right, let me see. What's up with the FM9? There we go. All right. So, hey, Colbert, what's going on? Great to see you, my friend. Friend since 2010, absolutely. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so Eric, so the idea of when you're getting ready to play with other people, being prepared as best you can on whatever piece of music you're going to play, knowing it as inside out as you can, as much as time will permit, and then kind of having some tools, doing some basic charting so you're ready and to be able to deliver. But then just really, one of the important things is just trying to have fun. And I think it's easy in the midst of all of this stuff to forget why we do what we do. And all of us, it was interesting. I ran into a guitar player, buddy of mine, and it would be inappropriate for me to say their name, but they were sitting in with somebody pretty famous, and they had a little bit of a case of nerves, and I was surprised because they're such an experienced player, but clearly, and he kind of said something. Well, I kind of always get nerves, and I was like, I just didn't expect it, and I kind of there comes a point, and it's interesting. There was an interview where Eddie was talking about, having to have a beer or something before he went on, to settle his nerves, which is so funny because you think about Eddie, he looks so relaxed on stage, and for me, generally when I'm feeling prepared, when I go out and play, I'm there to have a good time, and I think that psychology of like, hey, you know what, hit a few clunkers. But I will say the most important thing I've learned in this most recent season of playing live is I've learned to not, when I can, not think about what I'm playing, which is the funniest thing to say after all this node axis business, is to not be thinking about what I'm playing, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to respond musically to what's happening, and I don't want to think about, well, what licks can I do, or do I play fast here, do I play slow here? I will say one of the things, the very kind thing that it was Mike, I think. Michael, first of all, hello, hey, have a Jeff Beck sound. There are certain players that there are certain things that they do that just emote emotion. And, again, like Rick and I were talking about, Griffin, what's going on, my man? Griffin, we're about to, there we go. Awesome. Sonia, Thomas, for whatever reason, my overlays are not overlaying. You can see a little distortion down there when I hit overlay, but, I know, because it's not being brought to front. And I don't know how to bring this window to the back. So, and I know better to mess with Mother Nature in the middle of a live stream. Guaranteed to end badly. All right. The point being is there's certain players that I've really spent some time to listen to. But the other thing is for those of you that play instrumental music, and Griffin, I'm going to come back to your question. Hang on, let me make a note here, because this is one of the things that I definitely wanted to talk about, is delay. The short version is, and I've got a scene set up for this specifically on, I'm going to come back to this kind of player thing in just a second, but inside the reverb here, there are a number of parameters that are super uber important. And in the advanced tab here, let me make sure it's in the advanced. No, sorry, it's over here in the basic tab is the pre-delay. So what I'm actually doing, you're hearing, I don't have a delay on. You're hearing the reverb function like a delay. And what's neat about it, there's all sorts of grooviness that's happening. Before I go down all the way down that rabbit trail, here we go, because we're going to go way down there. That whole sound design thing is a big deal. Yeah, and Thomas was so loose. He was just like, yeah, I'm here to have a good time. And we had a lot of fun playing together. We'd never met, but we were like, hey, Warehouse 321. Got to run see you in July. We'll share this live to the page. It will get people excited. I really, 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 really appreciate the privilege of being able to play at your lovely venue, Earl. For those of you, I've got to. I've got these 4 venues that I'm playing at June, and then in July, June 10th in San Pedro, July 21st Nashville, July 22nd in Muscle Shoals, and July 23rd in Montgomery. But I've got to kind of figure out a way I'm going to pull together a social post that has all the things with all the stuff. So that's kind of on my list this week. But I will say, Warehouse 231. Larry sent me some photos and video of the venue. It's a venue and there's a studio. I was like, Earl, wow, like big wow. I'm just like, holy cow. So, in any case, I really look forward to the privilege of being able to meet you and hang out. And, we should probably queue up a call at some point with you, Larry, and myself and just kind of, map out whatever. In fact, I'd love to, get a chance to know you before we show up on your doorstep. So, thank you again for the privilege. What a venue. Holy cow. Okay. I should buy a Night Swan next. I love that, Rez. That's awesome. For those of you who don't know, the Night Swan, I think, had 2 humbuckers here, but no bridge pickup. Very cool. All right. Thanks again, Earl. All right. So this is an interesting thing, Zach. So, all right, now we are officially in the sound design camp. So let's go there. So what we've got down below here is awesome. Sonia, by the way, Sonia, I take it you were making a presentation on the Fulcrum and talking about doing sound design with that. So, the interesting thing is that Sonia's pedal, hang on, I can do this without breaking anything. I have a little wall of stuff over here that is the waiting to be used pile, which has got a bunch of great groovy stuff. But this is Sonia's Fulcrum pedal. And the thing about this particular pedal is it's a bi-axis expression pedal. Come on. There you go. Come on. Hush, hush, hush. Uh-oh. There we go. Coffee cup on keyboard. So basically you've got this very cool kind of Mesa Boogie-like deal. And you have your left and, I should say, your Y and your X axis. And then you can kind of do incremental turns in either one. And, if you think about, the nature of tone, for me, a big part of when I'm playing, gosh darn, I was going to make notes to make sure I didn't mistrack myself. So I started to talk a little bit about listening to players for certain sounds, and I jumped all the way into the sound design thing. So let me back up just a step, but for just a quick second. There are a number of players like Al Di Meola and Jeff Beck, with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and where there are things that they do, Neil Sean, that there are iconic, Edward, to their playing. So listening to those things and kind of taking a little, if you will, the reflection of that and bringing that into your stable. In particular, because I'm an instrumental player for this moment of what I'm doing, when I'm playing a melody, the great thing about taking those influences of, if you think about this, the melody from Dreams that Eddie plays, if you think about Always With You, Always With Me, if you think about Al Di Meola, when those guys play a melody, it makes the melody part of the song as interesting as the solo. So that's one of my big takeaways as I was in Texas thinking about how am I going to bring this in a way that makes people feel moved. So, Michael, your comment was right there because it's one of the things I'm very conscious of doing is like, as I'm playing the melodies, because the melodies are such an important part of the song, I'm going to do my best to make sure every single note, and I mean every single note, is played with a tremendous amount of attention and intent, such that the idea is that kind of nurturing of each of those notes affords me the ability that when I solo, the juxtaposition of soloing, I can kind of have a little bit more freedom. I can be more notey if I want to, but because I've been so obedient to the melody and really serving the song in that way, gives me freedom and almost the excuse for recess to then go run around, and it actually makes it a nice release, and that's kind of why as it comes to the time solo. Well, I'm not thinking about what I'm playing. I'm just kind of letting my fingers move on the fingerboard. Now, the interesting thing about that is it does take a tremendous amount of preparation. I'm playing on a good day 12 hours. On a really great day, more like 14. On a bad day, 4. But the thing is that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be the best version of myself such that when it comes to the Neely gig, because it's a really important gig. It's the first gig in California playing these songs. I want to be as good as I possibly can be, and such that I walk out of that venue kind of going, the preparation that I did was the pathway to the delivery of the things that I brought. Sound design is a huge part of that. So Mason and I, Zach, I can't bring this in to the my overlays aren't overlaying for the comments, but yeah, so Boss has this new SD 3000 EVH and a regular one as well. Oh, thank you, Jimmy. Really appreciate that. So again, the funny thing is that for those of you who ever go to sell a guitar that sounds really good but maybe isn't your jam for a moment, the guy that was selling this guitar put up a video of it, and it had been under his bed and he wasn't playing it, but the video I heard and I was like, because I'm as a Gibson artist, I can play Kramer. So this is very, dare I say, Stratty. And I think I got this guitar before I put the Floyd on the Flying V. There we go. And this guitar, I wrote the melody for this song on this guitar, at least the final version of it. So thank you very much. I love this guitar. It sounds great. All right, sound design, Focus Fox. So one of the interesting things, and this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily know that much about per se. Thanks, Jimmy. Is that first of all, I'm kind of mousing over, and I know that they will be small. Hey, by the way, I could use some feedback, people. So one of the things that I've been doing is I've been doing these live streams in this window, let's go over here, at what we would describe as 9 by 16 in video world as opposed to 16 by 9. Largely so people, although I haven't been necessarily making great use of my... B camera today, better use there. But the idea is it makes it so you can be on your phone, and it's a little bit more friendly for kind of social orientation. Anybody got any feedback on whether you like this? The first time I did, I got a lot of positive feedback, but more feedback it would be great. This is kind of how so many of us observe video these days, with maybe the exception of YouTube. So feedback would be great. And noting that a number of the people that tune in come from YouTube, feedback is helpful. All right. So getting back to this sound design thing. So one of the things about each one of these songs is that I knew in having, one of the great things about hanging out with Larry Mitchell, besides the fact that he's a flippin' great guy and a brilliant player, he's brilliant at sound design. That's one of the things that, about Larry. It's just like, and it was when I first met Larry at the 1987 NAMM show, give or take. And he was playing at the Ibanez booth, and he had a Mesa Boogie quad head and a power amp and the TC 2290 and his Ibanez. And, I call Larry Butterfingers because he's so smooth. And he kind of tolerates it. I don't know how much he likes it, but he's so smooth he kind of tolerates me calling him that. But just from the beginning, he just had this smoothness about his playing, but a brilliant control of sound. And it really, one of the things, my takeaways from the show that I played in Texas, in a restaurant, because there was a storm, but the audience was amazing. One of the best audiences I've ever played for. So you never know what you're going to get, one way or the other. But my takeaway was on this great little Line 6 Catalyst that I was using for the gig that sounded amazing, was that... all right, thank you. I like the 9x16 shows the left hand, whereas the 16x9 does not. Thank you. Note one of ditto. It is in many ways a better orientation when it's done right. If you were doing a TV show, wide angle would be preferred. That said, people can turn their phone in the landscape modes, 6 and 1 1/2 and dozen the other. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. But hearing Larry do, the different things. Now, one of the things I asked Larry about, said, your sound design, he said, actually, more often than not, that he really makes sure that the intros and the outros and maybe the solos are where you really most notice the changes in tone. And so that was one really important piece. But for me, because I did all that stuff on basically one sound, one delay and reverb setting, I found that by using the same sound and the same effects for, again, going back to the song Summer Nights. By using the volume, and although I didn't use the tone there, and the pickup selection, you can kind of create some gradations in tone, but there's still, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. There's a certain amount of sameness going on. So one of the things that I wanted to be able to do was to make sure that I had a much greater depth of field where I was crafting things to each of the songs. So again, going specific, because I have the privilege of doing these live shows kind of wrapped around, the goal is when I come back from doing the Neely show, I'm going to record the guitar parts for the instrumental album, and I'm going to commit to the tones, I'm going to commit to the way that I play them, but with the benefit of having rehearsed not only the parts and the way I'm going to play the songs, and just kind of, because a song takes on a feel, and it's so funny to listen back to the demos and going, I play that melody differently now. In my head, I'm playing it the way that I played it on the original demo, but I'm not. I play things I sometimes will anticipate where I didn't anticipate before. It's a little bit of a problem because some of the stuff we already shot video for, and I'm like, well, you just kind of go, well, whatever. Um, but the thing is that the song evolves. Uh, and the thing is that one of the biggest things that I've learned, um, Eric's question, speaking of albums, when are the albums going to be released? That's a great question. When I know the answer to that, I will know the answer to that. One of the things Caleb, the singer on the vocal EP, said was, hey, take your time. And, I was having this conversation with Melissa and somebody significant in my world the other day about there's a fine line between taking your time and taking too much time. But having the ability to go and do this Neely gig is going to tell me a lot of things because I'm basically going to be using the FM9 for that. So I'm creating sounds for each of the different songs that when I'm actually going to play them on an actual amp, or I'm going to do tone match and capture it into my Axe FX3 and then bring that into the FM9 so I can have that all portable, which is probably what I'm going to do. So I've got all my own amps in the mix of all of that, and then those sounds will be available for purchase. Not and I don't do what I do for money, but it is nice to be able to actually pay bills and have money left over. I think everybody can appreciate that. But the FM9, one of the probably the biggest reason, Mr. Lucchese, what's going on, Tony? It'll make a nice Christmas gift. I love that. Thank you. We're waiting to pre-order. Griffin, you are so awesome. Thank you, guys. It'll make a nice Christmas gift. Sorry, I missed that. Oh, you're a funny guy. That's great. So sooner than Christmas. How to sign up for your guitar instruction on June 10th. So June 10th, it's just going to be a gig. There isn't going to be a clinic then, but I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. So anybody that's interested, Tony Lucchese is one of my victims. And most everybody that's on here is at one point or another. I've had the privilege of teaching him either at one of the guitar camps or in person. So I am a very fortunate guy. So interesting, Brett. Rocking it. What's going on, Ichiro? Yoda. Appreciate it. Behind me. Oh wait, hang on. So one of the interesting conversations that had happened here last week that got me thinking is you can see. Oh gosh, okay. There are two line 6. There we go. There's one right there. That's it right there. 1, 2. Oh, gosh. Still haven't figured out. Nope. There. Oh, gosh. There we go. Line 6 power cab. So there's a power cab 112 plus. So for this gig, the Neely gig, one of the neat things about these is that they not only allow me to take the IRs and play them FR with a built-in power amp, and having two of them means I can do it in stereo with the spread. I also have the Power Cab 212 Plus, which is a single 212 unit, but this will allow me to get a little bit of a stereo spread. But I can also run my tracks through this. So it means that in a venue where I don't necessarily have stereo monitors, I got stereo monitors. That is to say when I'm running tracks. So this is a giant win. And one of the things that I talked about last time was the idea of using the Celestion full range live response speakers. And I actually took a trip out to storage, and I was looking for. I have like 24 12 cabinets, but I couldn't find the two that have the Celestion full range live response speakers easily. So I ended up grabbing the power cabs. And somebody asked about that last week. And so I'm going to try using them for this gig just because I can. And I'm sure my friends at Line 6 will be very excited about that because it's a great solution. The other thing I talked about before was the Power Stage 700 and the Celestions loaded into an actual cabinet. Great thing about Power Cab is I can just have the FM9 and a pair of power cabs, and they've got the power amp built into them. I'm kind of like, that's basically a backpack and one of those on each arm. I'm like, that's the fastest, easiest load in a couple of cables. I'm good to go. And you can also run your tracks into them with kind of a separate input. I'm like, That's great. So I'm going to be doing that for the Los Angeles gig. All right. So the concept though of working on the sound design is kind of taking some of the things that I've learned over the years, and beginning to utilize them. So let me step over into this world here. I can make my 2 Power Cab Plus if you need. Thank you very much, Zach. Very kind. You never know. And thank you for that. Very kind. All right, so let's go. So here's the thing: is Rhett Shull. I buy all of Rhett's courses. For one, because I'm getting ready to do a bunch of course material. It's always great to see what other people. Power Cab Plus 212. Those are great. There we go. Oh, look at you. I love it. You're a geek. You can run wet, dry, wet with the Power Cab 212 Plus. The funny thing is I've got the 212 Plus upstairs, and I actually was thinking about, like, man, I could actually run wet, dry, wet with that. To be continued, Zach. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. There may come a time, and that time may never come, that I call upon you for a favor. All right. So getting to the sound design thing, the interesting thing is, generally speaking, when I'm playing with distorted tones, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it other than you see the little blips there to the left of each of these blocks, and the blocks do illuminate when I mouse over them. But I have a compressor on. Generally speaking, when I'm playing with a dirty tone, I don't like to play with a compressor. Why is that? Because it has a tendency to do some of the work for you in a way that you get a little lazy. And so one of the big things I'm working on, and so I'm going to go over. So if I select, which right now it's kind of, if I kind of select each one of these. And this is one of the things that in After Effects I've had a little bit of an issue with from time to time. If you hit the space bar and it's selected, it bypasses it, which is great actually as a user interface thing. But if you kind of aren't paying attention, you've got Pro Tools running, and you hit the space bar, but you're in this window instead of Pro Tools, you're like, where'd my reverb go? All right, so here's the thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of strip this tone away to kind of its bare essence, which was really... So there's just kind of that. I knew I wanted it. I knew I wanted something with some. So sorry, I'm not doing everything that I intended to do. Let me turn the comp off. Actually, I'm going to move guitars, and I'm going to mute my input here. There we go. Because most of this is designed to be wrapped around the Flying V. And it is a very different sounding guitar. Everything's good. So this particular amp model I'm using, like I talked about the last time, is a Blues Junior. So I've got the gain at 4.53, and it just means that if I'm soft on the strings, it's clean. A minute ago, I started to talk about Rhett Shull. One of the things that in his videos, he's got one on amps. Rick Hunell, Jeff Beck, and EVH are 1 and 2 for me. I love that McLaughlin is up there. Absolutely. What's going on, Jeff? Great to see you, my friend. Also, Holsworth, absolutely. So the interesting thing that happened is I was kind of started working with the FM9. I wasn't super crazy about a number of the presets. They just kind of weren't, with my guitars and kind of the way I play and the sounds that I was looking for, really speaking to me. And the first one that I got to, if you kind of can see up above there in the interface there, it literally is preset number 92. And as soon as I kind of happened across this little Blues Journey, which is an amp, to the best of my knowledge, I've never actually played in the real world, which is kind of interesting. But number 4 pickup, so I can hear the number 2. Where I've got it elsewhere in one of the other scenes of this, I've got it set a little bit differently. But in this particular instance, I've just got it, I've got the bass up a little bit louder than maybe I normally would, but I wanted to kind of have something that when I added the compressor, just kind of gave me that when in turn I added this bit of business. I just wanted something that was there, a little Andy Timmons-ish, if you will. Little hint of Eric Johnson in there. But the other thing is when I turned on the drive, and I have a couple set up here, and I don't remember which one I had before. Again, you can hear the Eric Johnson. The thing about having a compressor on there, it does a little bit of the work for you. And I wanted to not get, oh, you know what? My compressor is off right now. I didn't want the compressor. Just makes it a little easier to get that work done, and I didn't want to get dependent. Here it is off. Wanted to make sure that one of the things I'm really working on is getting this really clear. I think Eric and I were talking about this hotel room practice, and what happens when I'm traveling, sometimes I'll wake up at like 3 in the morning, and I'll like, I want to practice. And I started, let me switch views here. Hang on a second. There we go. So, but I kind of was in the hotel room. And I was like, wow, what if I hit as light as I can, but still get a good enunciation but the right hand is super loose. And I was like, whoa. And I just have been really kind of running. So I don't want to get used to the compressor doing the work for me. And the compressor is, oh, I'm on the wrong window. There we go. Now the compressor. That just makes it a little bit easier. It's a little harder. I don't want to get used to that compressor doing that work, because when I find myself in a situation where I'm not playing with my rig, I don't want to kind of go, oh, I'm sucking. But at the same time, as long as all my sounds aren't done using the compressor, there's just a lot of fun stuff. It can happen with the right hand there. That's kind of fun to do. I just don't want to get dependent on the compressor there. So, getting back to the actual sound design part of this, one of the things that makes this particular scene so neat to be is the way that I'm using the reverb both as a reverb and a delay. So if you listen, I've got down here 383.7 milliseconds of a pre-delay. And then not only do you kind of get, when that's happening, because I've got the feedback at 33%, I'm going to turn that off. When you turn the feedback to 33% or more, let's go more, it starts to behave like a delay. But what ends up happening is that, if you will, if you think about, if you hear it just at there, that's just that initial transient when it plays back, and that's followed by kind of not super long reverb. So when I have 33%, it fades. So it creates this very interesting blend of delay and reverb that's behaving like a delay. And this is actually something I've wanted to do for quite some time. But and I've messed with it a little bit in Line 6 world, and there is pre-delay inside there. At least I think it's inside the plate reverb, but I'm not 100% positive. But the pre-delay enables you to kind of put that in here. But you know, one of the interesting things about Fractal World is there are all these parameters. By the way, anybody wondering? Interesting. I actually do have a little bit of ducking going on. Normally, so what that basically means is, as I'm playing, the delay, or in this case, kind of the reverb delay, will go down in level as I'm playing. When I'm playing with just a true delay, I have a tendency not to make that happen. But because this is delay with reverb in there, I'm conscious of not letting it get too soupy. And most importantly, I really want to make sure that initial moment, that transient, that pick attack, because this is a really nice melody tone. as I let up, you can hear it in the background, but it's there, but it's not ducking so much that you notice it. That is to say, by ducking, when you hit the notes, you can really hear it. But so you don't notice that it's happening, but it's just very subtle. But it just makes it a little bit easier to control the sound. And again, the initial melody note, that. So if I get quiet on a note. There's still a little bit hanging out in the background, but when I stop, it's again louder. And again, most of you know what ducking is, but I'm trying to do it in such a way that you don't notice that it's there. It's actually one of the things is that, to me, I'm so used to just like non-duck delays and reverbs. And again, if I were just using a pure delay, I would be inclined not to do any ducking at all. Just because. Now, that said, one of the things that's happening, and again, one of the things that is at the essence of this is taking each song and trying to craft parts that make sense for the song. And in so doing, kind of when there's different things happening with cymbals, this sits differently in the track. When the keyboards are doing different things, that sits differently in the track. When there's a rhythm guitar, that sits differently in the track. So where that works and is the right. The other thing, that little kind of the transient of that delayed reverb, it's a little loud on its own, but when the track's there, now you're trying to make it so it's there kind of it's this fine line between noticing it, hearing that it's there, it becoming part of the guitar sound, not being too far forward, and not being too far back. So it's ambience. But, too much ambience, it's no longer ambient. It's like it becomes a thing. And that's one of the neat things about working with this like this. And I have a feeling I'm going to be spending more time working with these delayed reverbs. Hanging out with Jared James Nichols, one of the things that he talked about was in a live setting, people using too much delay and it disappearing in the room. So especially using a reverb live, generally speaking, in a live situation, I do as much as I can to stay away from using reverb unless I'm really wanting the sound of reverb, because the room has already got reverb to it, unless you're playing at the baked potato. Andy, what's going on, my man? I've been thinking about you. Hang on a second. What's going on, Adam? And it says jizz, but I think you mean G's. That guitar is so gorgeous. But either way, it's a sign of affection. Laugh out loud. I think I already told you that. Thank you very much. Could you tell me about the pickups, though, and how you chose those specific ones? Great to see you. Thank you, Adam. And Andy, I don't see how you'd use a delay without the dugging effect anyway. But I think the ducking. So no, because the thing is that generally speaking, I'm used to just a traditional delay that does the TC2290, and I'm going to come back to the pickups, and I've got a lesson that starts in 9 minutes, so I'm going to have to go in a sec. The the 2290, Henry Kaiser loaned me his TC Electronic 2290. And that is the delay unit that was really famous for creating these ducking delays. And you could actually flip it around such that you actually, it played more delay when you were playing and less when you weren't, or it played less when you were playing and more when you weren't. And I learned so much about working with ducking delay and when you want that effect, how incredibly cool, especially the inverted version of it. I'm like, there's a time and a place for this that I will come back to that. Again, that is a traditionally ducking. You play in the delay and the reverb gets quiet. That wasn't, a ducking delay. Very funny. I got it. Right over my head. Great to see you, Andy. Always a pleasure. And I know that you said you hang out in the background here, but I always thinking about you and I always miss you. Griffin, you have a great weekend as well. Always a pleasure. All right. But, the thing is that I am, because, the ducking delay is such an integral part of the 2290 and is one of those things I am thinking about, especially since I'm wanting to create that nice layer of ambience where it does allow you to kind of go for this particular section of a song. Again, Larry Mitchell talking about doing specific things maybe for the intros or the outros of the solo section, as well as the, again, where you're trying to get that nice blend of stuff around it. All right, so first of all, Adam, the thing about this guitar that is very interesting, we're getting ready to make some more changes. So the bummer is we've been using the FRX tremolo on here, and basically it's a top-mounted Floyd. So I'm going to get to the pickups, but this is all kind of an integral thing. One of the things that's great about this for a Les Paul or Flying V, where you don't want to route the back, and I realize we've still got some tape back there, is that you're not really doing anything grossly destructive. The problem with the FRX, you can't really flog up and down. And the thing that I love about the Kramer is being able to float the tremolo up and down. So the decision, Chris, I see your comment. I just want to let you. Hey, Eric, great to see you. I look forward to seeing you a little bit later. So what we're gonna do is I have a second one of these is identical, and Gary Brower has a client that also has a Flying V that's about to get a Floyd Rose installed. So I'm gonna have with appropriate knowledge, I'm gonna get a chance to play the guitar before and after it gets routed in the back. So I have a second one of these. For me at this point, I've decided the being able to float with the tremolo. Jump from the ridge. So the thing about the floating tremolo is there's there's this, and for me, somebody said, oh, it sounds a little bit like Johnny Beck. That particular vibrato of that ability to rock that tremolo up and down. It's just like I kind of went, you know what? I've just got to have it. I was kind of going, hey, you know what? It's a little bit easier to put it with a top mount and you can put it on any one of these. But I kind of went, I've got to have the floating thing. So we're gonna have the second one of these put the floating on. I had Gary Brower, the guy that's my tech. This is a DiMarzio 38th anniversary PAF, which is the funniest name ever, but for whatever reason they decided they want to put this pickup out, and it happened to be the 38th anniversary of when they did the first PAF. So that's what it is. This is a Virtual 2 middle model, and I think that's it. Pull pull the tone control off there on the middle pickup is important. Okay, get a little tiny bit. A little spiky. One of the great things about the compressor, can I do that? There it is. Okay, so that is now in combination with. So that's a narrow aperture Sustainiac. Still a humbucking pickup, but it's just a narrow aperture version of it. And that's just it on its own. And then pull this guy. And just gives you that little extra bit of, well, a bunch of extra sustain actually. And automatically goes to pitch picker when you do that. And then you pull this knob up here. Up, yeah, I'm in the wrong screen, and I got to go in like 2 seconds. But hey, Stefano, what's going on? Bring the volume down a little bit. All right, hey, I got to get ready for this first lesson, but you kind of get the point. I mean, this guitar is just ridiculous. Being able to get to the tremolo will go all the way up and down. The great thing about the FRX is if you got it set up so it just kind of pushes down, it's a fabulous tremolo. The deficiency is if you really want to have it floating and flog it the way I have a tendency to flog it, this particular top-mounted design just doesn't quite do that thing. But I am enamored with this. I have a second one. We also did 4 controls, so basically volume, tone for basically kind of the bridge pickup, and then these two are for the middle of the neck. All right, I gotta go. You have a great day. Thanks so much for hanging out. Next week I'm going to be joined by Neely Brosh, and the week after I'm not going to be here because I'm going to be in LA playing a show with Neely, and perhaps I'll see you then. Regardless, I wish you an amazing, great, awesome, fabulous day and week. Thanks again for hanging out. And for those of you that are my students that I get a chance to see a little bit later, I look forward to seeing you later.